somebody reached out to me on Instagram. They saw the Victoria's Secret story, and he reached out with a somewhat impossible car to find. It was his grandfather's Porsche 911 that he hadn't seen since he owned it back in the 70s. I believe he maybe sold it somewhere in the 80s or so. So it had been off the radar for many, many decades. And he reached out. I didn't want to initially take the case because I thought it was kind of impossible, really, and I didn't want to take his money to even start on it. But he just kept asking and asking and asking. So finally I agreed, we'll write up a contract. I don't even want to charge him the full amount. So I took like half of the deposit I normally do to start on these cars because I really thought it was going to be impossible. And we agreed on, with the amount of research that would have to go into it, we agreed on an extremely high bounty for it. Partially, again, because I didn't think it was possible. I'm putting posts out now, on every Porsche Facebook group, on Renlist, on anyone and everyone who would listen. I start doing research into the VIN as well, and I get a name of a guy who had owned it in Maryland from 2002 to roughly 2014 or so was when his registration stopped on it. So I contacted him. And my client had actually done a bit of research and hired a PI, and he had been looking for the car for so long that he thought it was only 2 or 3 years ago that he hired the PI, but it was really in 2019. So he was looking for the car for a very long time. So this PI had given him this name, but they couldn't reach him, called all the phone numbers. I ended up finding an updated phone number for him and got in touch with the guy. He unfortunately didn't remember anything about the sale. He remembered obviously owning the car. He didn't remember when he sold it, but he remembered that it went to a contractor in the Newark, Delaware area who had other Porsches and wanted to restore this one. I had almost nothing to go off of. The VIN was useless. It hadn't been registered after he sold it, which means it's impossible to track down. So I took the little information that I had and I just started making these posts, who is in the Newark, Delaware area? What are some shops around that area that can fix these cars? And he had actually told me it was going to go to a shop near Philly, potentially, to get restored. So I start calling, literally just every single Porsche shop in Philly, asking them if they know about a 1977 Porsche 911S. No one knew. They were all very helpful, passing the information around. I actually started going down to shops in Philly during business hours. Can you talk to me about this car? We went to the biggest ones. Nobody knew anything about this car. I took about a week off of searching for that one as I'm working on a whole different investigation and revisited it by just raw Facebook searching, Instagram searching, social media, everything you could think of. And I find a post of just a somewhat similar blue color with a beige interior. And I started doing research into the colors of the car that I was supposed to find, and I found out it was called Minerva Blue, which is a very rare blue color. I start checking out this guy's page. I'm like, what are the odds this stripped down shell that he had just posted a photo of, random guy, what are the odds he's in Delaware? So I click on his name and it says Bear, Delaware. I was like, I wonder how far that is from Newark. It's a mile from Newark. It's just south of Newark. So I start clicking on his page and looking at other posts of this car, and he had actually disassembled it, planning to restore it. Then I see him call it Minerva Blue, and that it was a 1977, which is, I found the post that said 1977. So I knew it matched up the car very well. And so I start looking a little more. I look at some of the comments he was replying to, and he purchased it right outside of, I think it was Salisbury, Maryland. And that's where the car was last registered that we were looking for. So I'm looking at this, there's no way we just found the car just for regular searching. So I called the guy up, and he didn't answer me for the first day, left him a message. I called him again that weekend. And right before I called him, I spoke to my client. I was like, I have to know, are you really ready to purchase this if it's in this shape and we found the car? Because either we just found your car, or this is the biggest coincidence ever, as we found another blue, Minerva Blue 911 1977S that's owned by a guy in Newark, Delaware, who's a contractor, according to his Facebook, who bought it out of the same town that it was last registered in. The only thing that was throwing me off was the photos that I saw on his profile of when he had bought the car was extremely rough. And the guy that I had spoken to, who was the last confirmed owner, said the car didn't need a restoration whatsoever. I thought it might have not been the same car, and I called the guy again, and he's on vacation in South Carolina. He doesn't remember anything about the VIN. He couldn't remember where he really bought it, what the story was with it, except that it came from a mechanic shop. And then finally, I was just fishing for anything I could to get some kind of confirmation right then and there that this was the same car. And I asked him, I was like, did you buy it from somebody named Gene? And he goes, hold on one second. And he checks his contacts and he goes, yep, says right there, Gene Porsche. I was like, so you bought that blue car off of a man named Gene in Maryland? It was the same car. So he gets home that week, he confirms the VIN number, and now the challenge is we have to literally get this Porsche. That is, I've never seen a car more disassembled. And my clients in San Diego or San Francisco, I think, or somewhere in California, he couldn't be there. So he kind of put all this trust in me to just go and handle this. So I asked him if he was willing to sell after I found out it was confirmed to be Gene's, and he was. He didn't want to make any money off of us. He just wanted to kind of get in what he was into the car, which unfortunately he had sent the engine out to get like a very high dollar rebuild done on it, spent a ton of money on parts. So we ended up paying, it was a fair price, but I think it was a little bit high for the amount of work that needed to be done to the car. I mean, it needed a new roof skin. It needed a lot of work. It did come with a roof skin, which was nerve-wracking to transport because it was like made of tinfoil and I wasn't allowed to dent it because he told me there were 3 left in the country. He was willing to just take a bank check, and so my guy, putting full trust in me, mails me the bank check. So now he's paid me a significant fee for finding the car. I have the car, the title, and his bank check. So I actually drove down with the bank check and met him at his bank in the morning. He was a little skeptical. He didn't really know how bank checks worked. So he was like, do we wait till it clears? I'm like, no, I'm in Maryland. Like, this is what I came down here for. He did ultimately let me just go back to his house and start loading up the boxes and whatnot. And it was in one address, all of the parts were like body parts, seats. He had an extra set of seats. He ended up giving me so many extra parts for just making up for some of the other stuff that he didn't have. So I got like extra seats with the car, a couple extra body panels, I believe, like just he made up for it in a couple different ways. I was nervous that I wouldn't be able to get all these parts together. I think we did miss a couple of them. I told my client as much as we could, but we had to carry this thing out. I mean, in literal Corona boxes, piece by piece. And when I say disassembled, I don't mean like the blinker was, I mean like the blinker housing had its screws in a Ziploc and the lens was apart. Like every single screw and nut and bolt on this car was disassembled. Like you could have put down the wrench at some point, but he just didn't. And so he took the entire car apart, and it had been like 5 years like that. I mean, ecstatic doesn't even begin to describe it. They just flat out could not believe it. And I mean, down to going to pick it up, until I sent a photo of it in the storage unit with all the parts around it, you know, with the number of the storage unit that he booked on. I don't think he believed it up until that point. So he put a lot of trust in me, and I will say that. So the only things I had to go off of on that Porsche were a VIN, which is not 17 digits, so you can't find it in Carfaxes or even 90% of the databases out there. I had the photo, one single photo of his grandfather in the car, and I had an approximate date of sale, but nothing was really clear. None of the current owners really remembered, or that last owner really remembered when he sold it. So there was, when I had found the Porsche, I was a little dismayed that not only was it in a condition that obviously needed a restoration, but it was purchased in 2020, which is a lot later than the prior owner had told me he sold it. Turns out it sat at a mechanic shop for 7 years because it needed a clutch, which makes absolutely no sense to me. I don't know why nobody cared to do a clutch on it, but it sat in the yard for 7 years. And the owner came about it in an interesting way. It was purely by chance. He crashed a Ford Transit van extremely badly. And the guy who had bought the shell of the van reached out when he saw him starting to post on Facebook and whatnot, and that he was like okay and recovering. He reached out and was like, they didn't give me a key with your parts van. You know, the engine and transmission were still good. He's like, but I need the key for it. You know, would you sell me a key? So he goes to this mechanic to drop off the key, and he sees it sitting in the backyard there. And that's how he ended up coming to this car. So the same mechanic. And unfortunately, you know, the prior owner didn't even, if he had just told me which mechanic it went to, which he didn't even remember, I could have just found it in a heartbeat, you know, contacted him, found out who it went to. So I really didn't have much to go off of. He had actually asked me to find a shop locally, like in the Virginia, Maryland, PA area, to try to put the car back together, but I kind of pushed him away from the idea because while it would have been more convenient to transport and less likely to lose small parts, you know, I made sure we bubble wrapped everything, we secured everything. So I made it so that it was able to be transported. And I told him, you don't want to restore a car that's so far from your house. You know, you won't be able to go back to the shop if they mess anything up. You won't be able to deal with problems. You won't be able to check up on it. You're just going to have to trust this random shop that I don't know any Porsche shops down there. I've asked friends. Nobody knew any Porsche shops that they just trust with put this back together and not charge me $250,000. I advised him, get it out to you in California, and they are planning on restoring it. He actually didn't want to go the storage unit route because he was like, if it sits there, it might sit there for a very long time, and I don't want the convenience of that. We basically booked an extremely expensive storage unit for the area, and as of this story, it should be getting taken out of the storage unit tomorrow. In the end, it took a bunch of guys, but we had to lift this Porsche body up, and the engine block was just a strip block. Picked it up. We literally carried this Porsche out piece by piece by hand. One of my movers, he was on a FaceTime with his girl, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Tell her you're carrying a Porsche by hand. It sounds so badass." And so we literally took piece by piece out and got it all. We loaded up the flatbed first, and then went to where the body was. So we actually had to make 2 runs to the storage unit to empty the flatbed of all the parts and fragile stuff like the roof skin and body parts, and then get the shell and other totes of parts from a different garage an hour and a half south. So it was quite an ordeal, but we got it done that day for him. As far as I know, the Porsche is going back to California, and they're being reunited after, 50 years.
Have you ever gotten an automated speeding ticket either from a fixed position camera or a school zone? In the US, that's less common than it is in Europe, and most of the time when you get the notification, they'll tell you that it's just about the payment, that they're not going to report anything. As long as you pay your speeding ticket, you won't have any points on your license or any additional risks. But did you know that those are some of the easiest tickets of all to fight and beat, especially with a partner like the Ticket Clinic? In Florida so far, they are 500-0. They've never lost fighting one of these tickets. So not only can they get them totally thrown out, but they can save you a ton of money. So check them out now at the link in the description below. You can actually just take a picture of your ticket, no matter when it comes in the mail or how you're issued a ticket, and text that picture to 305-305, and that'll get them on the case immediately. They'll let you know exactly what the proper course of action is and what their strategies are for every local municipality or jurisdiction to get your ticket dealt with. And of course, for regular tickets, for speeding tickets and things like that, the Ticket Clinic is your perfect partner to fight every one. They'll help you avoid costly fines, risk of license suspension, points on your license, jail time, higher insurance premiums, all the bad things that come with getting a bad ticket. The Ticket Clinic can help. They've got a nationwide network of attorneys that can help you find the perfect local partner that knows your area, knows your county, knows everything about it, and can help you fight your ticket and achieve the best possible outcome. So check them out now at the link in the description below to thank them for their support of VINwiki and fight your ticket with the Ticket Clinic.